Can you make a blue box Athearn engine look realistic? I'll let you decide. Hi, I'm Dan Cortopassi. Welcome to Model Showcase. In this episode, we're going to talk about an HO scale model of Santa Fe SD40-2 5111 that I built. Let's take a look. So Santa Fe 5111 was the first of two snoot-nosed SD40-2s that I built in HO scale. Both of them were built from blue box units, which is the old school Athearn if you're not familiar. Some of you might be more familiar with this sister unit to this engine, 5126, but 5111 was actually the first one I did. So if you haven't seen an Athearn blue box shell before, it looks like this. The one in the front is a completely untouched Athearn blue box undecorated shell. I don't remember if 5111 was originally undecorated or if I stripped the paint off of it, but in any case it ended up more or less like this before I tore into it. So one of the most obvious changes that I made was to replace the original molded on fans with Canon parts. These are see-through, they have individual blades. These are just basically hunks of plastic. This actually represents a slightly newer SD40-2 with Q fans, but it would be similar. The Athearn did make one more like this, and it would pretty much look the same or very close. So I really think this was a very worthwhile thing to do. So another more subtle change is the walkway tread. This engine has one of the Canon photo-etched walkway tread sets on it, so it actually has texture. It's hard to see at this distance, but this actually has like diamond plate tread on it, whereas this is just totally smooth and, you know, doesn't look as good. I also put photo etched steps over the original steps, which are just basically, again, just hunks of plastic. I didn't cut them out, so they're not actually see-through, but I think the effect is pretty good. And you still retain the structural integrity of having the solid step underneath. So this engine has Canon parts on the front. So the short hood, the cab subbase, and cab are all Canon parts. And I think the anti-climber as well. Don't remember exactly, but I'm pretty sure that's a Canon anti-climber. So, you know, basically just cut off all of this and replaced it with new parts because these just look a lot better and they're a lot more accurate. So you might notice the kind of weird looking anti-glare panel on top of the short hood. This is actually correct for 5111 according to photos that I found of it. Most of the time it would go all the way to the end and kind of be angled to match the nose contour. But on this particular engine, they stopped it here for some reason. One of the things I love about Santa Fe engines is that they usually have a lot of stuff going on the top. This one has these three different antenna stands, which are all, I think these two on the ends might have been some kind of photo etched part, but I think the one in the middle I had to scratch build. And then these antennas, I believe, are Details West parts. And then this air conditioner unit that I put on, and all this conduit is brass wire. One of these pieces of brass wire conduit actually runs down and underneath the antenna stand back here. There's also a piece of brass wire that represents the air line to the rear-mounted horn. Santa Fe started moving a lot of their horns to the rear of the units during the 90s, and this was one of those. So they had to run a pipe from the original horn location back to the back in some cases. That actually comes up here where the horn would have been initially above the cab. All of the handrails on this unit were done with precision scale brass stanchions and brass wire for the actual handrails. And they're all soldered together, so they're pretty solid. So you might notice that the sunshade is a little bit back from being centered, you know, on the cab, over the cab window. That's because that's how it appeared in photos of this unit that I found. I think in the real ones these are actually movable, but you know, I just put it where I saw it on the model. So I painted this model myself using scale coat paint and microscale decals. The masking on the war bonnet is kind of tedious, but you know, if you take your time it can come out nice. I added brass wire brake lines to all the trucks because they didn't have that initially. And then I also added on the engineer side these little spare knuckles because, again, that's how they were in photos. I did a lot of work on the fuel tank. The stock blue box fuel tanks are kind of rough and they have kind of a mold seam running down the side. So I, had to sand all that off And I sanded off all the molded on details and then used some aftermarket fuel tank details on it. I also cut off the molded on air reservoirs, which I don't think look very good, and replaced them with some Details West parts. This is what the stock blue box air reservoirs look like. Just kind of little hunks of plastic. I added a few undersill details too to kind of give the impression that there's more under there than there really is. I don't usually go too nuts on the underside of the sill because it's really hard to see. I used some brass wire for this little, I don't know if this is conduit or what it is, or if it's part of the air hose thing for the roof. It's a little hard to see, but a lot of Santa Fe engines had this, just like right in front of the cab windows underneath this overhanging part of the where the number boards are. They had this pipe going up. So I added a lot of little details like the windshield wipers. Those are aftermarket parts. The cab mirrors here, or wind deflectors, whatever these are. Added those as well. It's got all freestanding grab irons, you know, pretty much like you'd see on a scale trains unit these days. In the 90s, Santa Fe had a lot of their headlights relocated down lower to the nose rather than up in the original location above the cab. So this engine's modeled that way. And it also has ditch lights added. And these were done with, I think, 603 size surface mount LEDs inside. I added a bunch of other details on the pilots as well, like uncoupling levers, this MU cable. If you saw this popped out on the previous shot, it actually came out of the little hole that it goes in, so I had to put it back. Fortunately, pretty easy fix. I added the air hoses and a Details West plow too, and it's got Katy couplers on it. And in the rear, I have another cable, a drop step. This doesn't move, this is fixed in place, but I modeled it down. And then more air hoses and such. So on this side down here, I also added a brake chain made with real chain. This chain is also very small 40 link per inch chain right here. It's actually put on little tiny hooks that come out of the handrails. So I did make the number boards lightable on this one. They're not super bright, but that's on purpose. Also got the headlight and ditch lights. I brought this engine out to the module. It hasn't been run in a while, so let's see how it does. So this ran pretty well. You know, anytime I pull an engine out of mothballs, I'm always a little bit worried about congealed lubricant or, you know, something like that having gummed it up while it was in storage. But this one seems fine, and I'm pretty happy with that. So one thing I forgot to mention before is that I changed all the wheels on this engine to nickel silver wheels instead of the original sintered iron wheels that came with the blue box engines. They just work a lot better and have much better electrical contact. Also, this engine has a CAN motor in it. I think it's a Mishima. I'm not going to pull it apart to find out, but it's not the stock motor. So basically all of the drivetrain upgrades that you could do to an Athearn blue box have been done to this engine. Anyway, I'm glad to see this engine is still running really well. I'm pretty pleased with that. It sounds pretty nice too, so you know, overall I'm still happy with the build. I'm looking forward to running this thing on my Donner layout eventually, in concert with my SP units. I hope you enjoyed taking a look at this model with me. If you like this video, then please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Stay tuned and thanks for watching.